computer. Okay. All right, I think. And I've sent to, Janice and I sent to David Coy this morning the recordings from the last two sessions. So because he had said he would be able to put them up on the website for us. So we'll let people know when they're available, but it should be. He said, even though he doesn't feel very, he's got a cold, it's feeling yucky, but he said, I can sit here and do that. Hi, everybody.
Hi, Debbie. Who is Janice? Is that the office? Is that?
No, that's Jan Butler.
Oh,
That's how
okay.
she spells her name, so,
Okay. Oh, you know, nice.
yeah. That Janice is CE.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
Well, welcome to the Wednesday noon contemplative time. I thought we would start with time of connecting and doing it in a slightly different way than we sometimes do. And I really want to connect with the people who are on Zoom. So this, you're going to be able to fully participate in this little thing. So what we are going to do, and I think it might feel better standing. We're going to hold our right hand up and our left hand down. We're going to practice with Jim. We're not going to touch each other. So on Zoom, find a picture that you feel like you're connecting to. You're connecting to a person, okay? And if Jim would lower his hand a tiny bit. So now take a breath in and just relax in this position. So the idea is that we can actually sense the presence and the connection with others. We can sense it through our hands, and we can try to optimize this by opening our hearts. So we are a circle, whether you're here in the room or whether you're at some distance. Maybe Edie, you could hold your hand up.
Trying to get rid
Oh,
of
yeah. So we're connecting in friendship. We're connecting in community. And I think we're connecting in our desire to be in the presence of God. So just take that little bit in. We are a community. We're seeking to be a special community in connection with the divine. Just spend a minute or second to just see if you feel there. You may feel a little tingly in your hands. You may feel nothing. But if we can pass this heart energy around the circle, we can really be connected. And now we're going to put our hands down. Try to hold on to that sense of connection. And you can sit back down again. So our focus today is on centered prayer, and our guide is Father Thomas Keating. And I have a prayer. It's a beautiful prayer. Everything Thomas Keating says is beautiful. I just love to listen to him. So I'll read this slowly because he has a lot to say. It's the welcoming prayer. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I welcome everything that comes to me today because I know it's for my healing. I welcome all thoughts, feelings, emotions, persons, situations, and conditions. I let go of my desire for power and control. I let go of my desire for affection, esteem, approval, and pleasure. I let go of my desire for survival and security. I let go of my desire to change any situation, condition, person, or myself. I open to the love and presence of God and God's action within. Amen. The last sentence as welcoming God's action within is a particularly important saying of Thomas Keating. In the process of centering prayer, we're not going into a void. We're letting go of everything, but within and around, we're welcoming the presence of God. So we feel that connection. I was intending to say something in our circle earlier, but I had a text from Bronwyn. Sarah's surgery was recently completed. She's in recovery, and she said, "Can you pray for Sarah?" And I said, "Yes, and we'll pray for you too." So let's hold them in our hearts today. And I guess we should also hold Debbie in our hearts, because she's making the journey back into sort of more normal life, and she's had a lot to deal with. So we'll treat her gently and with love. So I thought it might be interesting to talk just a tiny bit about Thomas Keating. And I'm wondering, I read his obituary, New York Times obituary. So I don't really know much about Thomas Keating. I'm wondering, do people know something about him that you'd like to contribute?
I don't know a lot about him, but I did just listen to Cynthia Bourgeot talk about him, and
Recording in progress.
she said that towards the end of his life, he was recognized as a truly realized being, and that the Dalai Lama was.
You know, I'm just concerned that they maybe can't hear you.
Should we speak up?
Can you all hear? Yeah,
Oh,
okay.
okay.
So they're not-
It's okay. I had to turn the volume up on my, oops. I had to turn the volume up.
Okay, so maybe if we speak up a little, it would help.
Or direct us.
Well, or direct it towards the microphone. I mean, it's hard to, if you turn your head sideways, then it sort of goes away.
Good instructions.
Thank you.
It would help people here also.
Okay.
Anyway, he was spoken of as a recognized, realized being, like someone who had really ascended into great awareness. And I found that I want to know a lot more about him, and that he lived into his 90s, I think 92 and 93.
Good.
And that spoke to me a lot about the power of centering prayer, which was one of his foundational practices. So.
Anyone else?
Also, the potential that's there in those later years. Often don't acknowledge people.
So he was born in, I think, 1923, and he died at the age of 95 in 2018. And the headlines for his obituary said he was a pioneer in centering prayer. And I really think that he took himself out of a private life and put himself into the public arena in promoting the centering prayer practice. The story said that when he was 5 years old, he overheard a conversation. He was very ill, that he might not live. He might be at this time going to die at 5 years old. So he made a bargain with God. And he said, "If I live to be 21, I will become a priest." And it also said at that time, when he was a youngster, he would sneak out of his house and go to mass. He didn't want his parents to know, because they wouldn't like him sneaking out going to mass. But I think he really did make that dedication. He was born in Manhattan. He's a New Yorker. And he became a Trappist or Cistercian monk. And I don't know the difference, but I don't think it matters to us. But the abbey where we're going is a Trappist community of monks, right?
Yeah.
So what happened during the Second Vatican Council? The Pope was wanting to move the people into more contemplative practices, and they invited Thomas Keating to come to Rome. So he spoke to that group, and he came home with an extreme dedication to centering prayer. And his dedication actually put him at odds with his abbey. And they took a vote of whether he should continue to be the abbot. And he said that the vote was split. So he left that position of abbot, but what that did for him was that it allowed him greater freedom. And it said that he reached out, he included other religious faiths, he met with the Dalai Lama and imams and rabbis, so it took him out of the strict Catholic arena. And he's written 30 books, and he's also written, I found it on Amazon, he's written a guide an audio guide that you can buy if you really want to get into this. He has some sayings that are famous, and one of them is, silence is God's first language, everything else is a poor translation. So, and I think that was his big thing. He was in silence for 5 or 6 years as a younger monk. He said nearly complete silence, so. And then this is another saying, to pray is to consent to God's presence and action within us. So that was part of his, the prayer that we read. And that really touched me, because in that place of prayer, you're expecting to be in communion with God. He says, the action of God you may not know, who knows when you will know that, but it's happening. So what we will do, we're going to, in a few minutes, we'll listen to it's really only about 5 minutes of instructions for centering prayer, and it comes from Thomas Keating at Folsom Prison. And it's the most beautiful introduction. We should really pay attention. It's only 5 minutes, and then we'll do 15 minutes of centering prayer at the end. It's a little longer than Tony did with us the last time. I found a whole 30-minute YouTube on the prisoners at Folsom Prison in dialogue, asking questions of Father Keating. So I think I'll send out that link, because I think we will learn a lot from that, because he had been working in this prison to give the prisoners a practice that would be an important part of their lives. So what we will do first is a body prayer. We'll do a chant. We'll do the contemplative prayer, the centering prayer, and then hopefully we'll have 10 or 15 minutes for discussion about anything that you want at the end, anything that struck you, any questions that you have.
Where is Folsom Prison?
Close to Sacramento, California.
Thank you.
And what abbey was Thomas Keating at? Snowmass?
No, he was originally in Massachusetts.
Right.
And he
Snow-
was developing centering prayer, but then I think he did go to Snowmass.
So Snowmass, he started a new order out there. That's what, he was there for not too many years, but then he went back to Massachusetts.
Was he at Spencer? Must have been
Spencer, yes, that's what it.
Oh, wow, I didn't know. I didn't find him up there. So where was Snowmass?
Colorado.
Oh, okay.
You're asking. I think so.
That's where Cynthia Bordeaux
Oh.
lived and met Rafe, or
At Snowmass.
Mentor.
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
So may I introduce you to, Tony talked about our 3 centers of knowing, and how the body prayer engages our motion center, our body center. So this is a practice that I've learned through my background in the Sufi pathway. But it's not particularly, it's in English, it's easy to do. I like it because it goes back to what we did last week about bowing and the way we traditionally use our bodies in prayer. But it's called a bowing zikr. And a zikr is just, in this case, it's just going to be movement. I think I will introduce it to you and we'll say it together 5 or 6 times. And why I think it will help is that in the motion of the body, you can realize what the words that you're saying. It does something, your body responds, so that you could, in the end, not say the words and your body would know what's going on. So this is just watch me for a minute maybe, and if you don't like to bow, you can bow your head. If you got a bad back, you don't have to, but I think to bow down with your upper body helps you get into your body. I bow down and release my adult responsibilities and burdens. And feel, as you do this, let go. Sink into it, relax your muscles. I'm going to shorten it a little bit. I bow down and release my burdens. I rise and greet my divine child. Okay, second time. I bow down and release my burdens. I rise and greet the divine child. Bow down and release my burdens. I rise and greet my divine child. I bow down and release my burdens. I rise and greet my divine child. Last time. I bow down and release my burdens. I rise and greet my divine child. And when I was taught this, I was taught you can also do it by saying the words Kyrie eleison, which I think people may be more familiar to people. So if you want to repeat it at home, you say Kyrie eleison, and I think it means God have mercy on me.
Lord have mercy.
Lord have mercy on me. So that's another way to do it. And I thought I'm going to use the same chant that Tony used. It's a perfect chant for centering prayer. It's the Be Still chant. And I will start it, and I'm sure Tony's deep voice will join in so that we can be well heard. Be still and know that I am God. Be still and know that I am. Be still and know. Be still. Be still and know that I am God. Be still and know that I am God. Be still and be still. Be still. Be still and know that I am God. Be still and know that be still and know. Be still. So, I think we're ready. We're going to, things will change a little bit from what it says. We will not meditate for 20 minutes, or we'll be in prayer for 15. And I think at some point we should just shut off the video sharing,
Right.
because he says that he's going to end with the Lord's Prayer, and it's not going to happen like that. And I will, Tony's brought in his bowl, that we'll know that it's time to come back by the sound of the chime.
Is there a way to make sure?
I'm going to need just something to focus our attention. Yes, it's a God, and so you might just follow this in your quietly in your mind, and when you feel that you that the presence within you, just pay no attention to what. And I'll just say the Our Father out loud very slowly as the 2-minute transition to our ordinary thought. And you can just listen, follow in your heart, or say some of the prayer if you wish. So let us begin by closing our eyes, symbol of letting go of everything in our momentary environment, and of bonding with each other at the place, the deepest place within us, where we are already all one, united with each other. We begin our prayer by disposing our body. Let them be relaxed and calm, but inwardly alert. The root of prayer is interior silence. You may think of prayer as thoughts, feelings, expressed in words, but this is only one expression. The deepest prayer is laying aside of all thoughts, feelings, and perception. It is the opener of mind, heart, body, and feeling. Our whole being, God, the ultimate reality, beyond words, thought, or feeling. We do not resist them or try to suppress them. We accept them just as they are and go beyond them, not by effort, but by letting them all move on. We open our awareness to the ultimate reality when we know by faith it's within us, closer than believing, closer than thinking, closer than choosing, closer than consciousness itself. We are totally present now with the whole of our being, in complete openness, in deep prayer. The past and future, time itself, unforgotten. We are here in the present of the ultimate reality. Like the air we breathe, His presence is all around us and within us. Distinct from us, but never separate from us. We may sense this presence drawing us from within, as if touching our spirit and embracing it, or carrying us behind ourselves into pure love. We surrender to the attraction of interior silence, tranquility, and peace. We do not try to feel anything, reflect about anything. Without effort, without trying. We sink into this present, letting everything else go by. No thinking, no reflecting, no particular acts of will, except to return to the sacred word when we notice we are attracted to some other thought or feeling. Let love alone speak, and simple desire to be one with the present. Let itself open reality. We wait patiently upon God in silence, openness, quiet, worship the Spirit, surrender to the attraction to be still, to be loved.
Oh, my. You could listen to it, but he was still on. Who knew? Yeah, at least the timing was good. Oh, that's funny. I wonder what I would do to get out of there. I know it.
Yeah, the voice for it.
So,
Oh, but then I may have lost them.
oh,
Oh, dear. No, I didn't.
No, you haven't lost me.
All right. I'm a little klutzy at this.
Well, I'm still here and I can see you all.
At least the timing was good on that.
so that's a bit longer time in centering prayer.
Sorry for the little interruption.
Oh, that's, we're supposed to be able to handle that, maybe. What time it is now? We're about 15 minutes. I think just for, anything you'd like to say, any questions, any, insights, any good moments or not so good moments?
At Light on the Hill, we sometimes occasionally do energy work, and I never perceive it at all. I participate, but I don't really perceive it. But this time I felt maybe the needle. It was exciting.
You felt it?
Yeah.
That's awesome. I rarely feel those things either, so that's really cool.
I think the hands are particularly sensitive, the hands and your feet, right?
Definitely feel heat and connection.
Did you feel, you felt heat?
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
I felt the heat from, but I felt the energy. It reminded me, I may have spoken about it one time, but when I was in the street, walking down the street where there were big trees on either side of the sidewalk, I discovered that I could close my eyes and I would know when I was standing between the two trees. I would feel their energy. It was amazing. So, 5 feet before you get there, there's nothing, and then all of a sudden there it is. They're living critters. Which we should do some ceremony with our tree out there that to receive its energy and bless it, send it love and thanks.
Can I say something?
Sure.
Okay, just, this is nothing about the prayer. I couldn't hear Thomas Keating's thing at all, so I'd like to have the link.
I'm sorry, and yes, I'll send the link for sure.
Yeah, I don't know, the sound is not, and Tony, I couldn't understand a word you were saying. So something is not working with the sound.
Okay, all right.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know whether he's too far away or his voice is too low, but the other thing too is that when you were chanting the be still and no, the sound was cutting out. So it's something with the microphone. Anyway, as far as the centering prayer goes, I'll just simply say I have monkey mind today. And the thing that I love about Thomas Keating is that and I think it was something that Cynthia Bourgeot said in that one thing, is that, we're not trying to get a result here. So it's just sort of acknowledging where you are and letting it go as much as you can. So it's pretty cool.
Margie, I will send the link. Can you hear that?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh, good. And it is not a good recording. He has a very gravelly voice. But I think maybe there's more than that going on, so our apologies.
It's okay. This is an experiment. So, this is the whole thing about being an expansive church, we have to learn.
Yeah, and we've been, part of our question about this hybrid model in here is whether we need to get some kind of microphone and or speaker that would help. But I think the microphone seems to be the larger issue, so. Okay, we'll keep working on it.
Anyone else? Louise?
Yeah, I'm wondering, like, when I do Thursday morning meditation or this, I sort of see different patternings of color. I'm curious if anyone else does. I mean, I just feel it, yeah. Well, and it changes.
I think that people have different ways, like, you know, Bill was talking about doing energy work,
Yeah.
and people would report hearing things, seeing colors, feeling warmth.
Mhm.
So this may be your modality, so
Yeah.
I would be grateful.
No, I mean, I first, I went to Qigong with this person and she had a, you know, discussion and, the many people there described, she said, well, describe your experience, which was really, you know, trying to verbalize it, but yeah, I was just curious.
I don't know much about it. I occasionally see color. It's interesting if you look up the Hindu stuff on chakras. They'll write there's stuff, there's associations with different colors with different parts, different chakras. And so I know that the third eye, which is the spiritual, you know, perception, is sort of a purpley color, and I sometimes see that. I'm more likely to see that if I sort of, in some way, for whatever, you know, sort of focus there a little more.
And I really like the combination of the chanting and then going into meditation.
Yeah.
I mean, you can feel the I don't know what you call it, vibrato or vibrations, kind of rolling around. Anybody else? I like that chanting. You know, you can really feel that, I think.
Last week, we talked about the moving center and senses, and people shared various motions that that the emotion conveys a spiritual understanding. And I shared that in a workshop yesterday, a book group, Cynthia studying Cynthia's book, and someone mentioned incense, the sense of smell, and that was powerful for them. And I don't know if we mentioned that last week or not, but certainly that's, I've experienced some settings where there's a strong sense of incense, and that really carries a sense of the sacred for me. It's a powerful thing. I just wanted to bring that up.
Right. I want to raise my hand again. Yeah, having grown up in the tradition of bells and smells, meaning the Episcopal Church, yeah, I mean, the incense is a very powerful association for me. Frankincense, especially because that's what they use. The other thing I was going to say is that in the Japanese incense comes in certain lengths, and the short ones will burn for 15 minutes. So if you don't want to have a timer ticking, you can light a stick of the incense, and when it's done, you've meditated for 15 minutes, and the bigger ones are 30. So that's another little technique. Louise, I love the fact that you can see color. Some people see color when they're listening to music. It's some people have that gift. It just, they're wired that way. So that's cool.
There's a word for that. I don't know what it is.
It's synesthesia.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
As you know, I live in my head center a lot. So
And Margie, who's the guy who wrote the book about the man who thought his wife was a hat?
Oliver Sacks.
Oliver Sacks. Yeah, he sort of gets into synesthesia a lot, I guess. Never quite, you know, anything.
I really appreciated the longer meditation. It just, 10 minutes, I'm just beginning to sink into that, to practice the letting go. And it definitely, and maybe not always, but, just feels like it gives me a chance to go deeper. So, and I like practicing that with a group because there's an energy to that. Yeah, it's very supportive. Just as we were feeling it with our hands, I think just sitting in a circle or semicircle.
I'm curious about when we go to the monastery, what we will feel and sense of a place where there's just been people gathering in meditation and prayer for years and years. And then just being open to that environment can be a very powerful opportunity.
Yeah.
Do you have a plan to go to the monastery
So
soon?
we do, April
Oh.
12th through the 14th, we're going to the monastery of Genesee Abbey up in Rochester, near Geneseo. And you're welcome to come if you'd like to do that.
Thank you.
Sure.
I have a question. When you talk about incense or when Debbie talked about, if you concentrate here or so from my listening to Cynthia Bourgeau, I feel like she's saying, and correct me if I'm wrong, but
Right.
not
I'm saying don't do that.
don't
right?
concentrate on any of that. Like for me, I know if I were to light incense, that I'm very sensitive. So my senses would be then like woken up into that realm, which I think wouldn't really serve the letting go. So I'm just, is that the sense of what, I feel like what she's saying is, it is just all about letting go. It's the intent to let go that takes us to that place.
But then don't you think that the letting go sometimes starts to be an effort? When they say no effort. Because I have, yes, I like the longer meditations better too, Debbie, because normally I do 10 minutes and meditation has always been really difficult for me. And I've gone to lots of groups and classes and spent a lot of money on it. And one person finally said, okay, then just let the thoughts go. And because it's supposed to be no effort. And I just kept finding myself, and once I did that, then I could settle into, and maybe the incense is a part of settling into where you need to go. I think it's like diet, everybody's different, and you find your own eventually, or you keep going with the journey and the process.
I've even wondered about the sacred word. I think you can, as you return to the sacred word, you could be thinking about the meaning of the sacred word. And I know when we did that program with Cynthia Bourgeau, they mentioned that you can also have a gesture. Something that is, I think, less, your mind is going to go around it. Like sometimes when I do the sacred word, but I take a breath at the same time. And just taking the breath, it brings me to a different consciousness. Then I've let go of the thoughts.
Yeah, you often hear return to the breath if your mind starts to wander. And one of the groups I did, their words were hollow and empty, which at first I didn't like. It felt, but for me, it worked. Hollow and empty.
I agree with what you said, Amy, about, I think kind of different strokes for different folks kind of thing. I think something, I've sometimes used lavender, essential oil, and put a candle under that, and I found that helpful. And sometimes focusing on a word, or I remember reading that you're supposed, it's helpful, can be helpful to some people to do like 2 syllables and then 3 syllables. When you're saying some kind of a prayer, you want to try that. But I do think it's whatever assists you. And and going to that space within. I just want to say I appreciated what Thomas Keaton said about kind of surrendering to that desire that we have, and then just sink into the silence and to be more aware of our communion with the greater. Yeah, that helped me when, you know, I kept catching myself was to keep, you know, thinking of different things and suddenly being aware of it. But it helped me just to think of those words, because I do feel that inside me. That's a desire to join that silence and that union. So it was like, oh yeah, I have to go get into. I can go into that desire again. Just be there for a moment anyway. You look quizzical, Amy. Quizzical.
Just I love it. Yeah, and I was thinking, I'd like to hear Thomas Keaton all over again. And
Well, I was thinking we should send the link out.
I think it would be, like I've used it at home to do, you know, it's the beginning to my centering prayer. And I don't always do centering prayer, but I've been doing it this week. And his voice alone, his voice quality, it just lets you sink down almost immediately. So I'll send out the link. And I'll send out the link for his discussion with the prisoners.
Oh, I'd love to see that.
I think that could be instructive.
I use a centering prayer, which is very basic. I can choose what sound I want for the beginning. I can say how long that time is going to be. So I hear a gong, and there's no noise between that and the gong at the end. There's basically, you can choose if you want a little phrase before you enter that space. But it's just thoughtful because it.
How do you get that, Debbie?
You go
To the Apple store.
The Apple Store, yeah.
Right, and you just enter entering prayer.
Yeah, country prayer. I think there's probably more than one.
Well, there are a lot of meditations.
Right, this is specifically centering prayer.
I have a similar one, except that I like music. I find I do better if there's music the whole time. So I have one that will play. You can choose the song, and I try and find something that's not too distracting or like draw your attention. Because I find the music helpful to meditate, and I'm going to try the smell thing. Like I have a little burner with lemongrass oil. I've never tried that.
I've never tried it either. It strikes me that maybe the kind of thing, like Margie talked about, if you use it consistent over time with repetition, then it becomes an association of being in that space, right? Rather than something you're focusing on. It's there as a background kind of thing.
So we are sort of at the 1:30, I guess, 1:30 hour, but if there's one more comment or question.
Barb, what was this again?
Shall I put, I'll put that, well, I'm not sure. I tried to change the words to make it more accessible, but it's, so I bow and set down and the way I learned it was my adult burdens. And then when you rise to the divine child within, and I didn't say within. But I think that adult in the child, it's like the adult in us is no longer pure, you know. It's like we carry so much with us. So if we can let, you know, and basically you're giving it over, you're surrendering it. You can surrender it to God, I think. And then when you rise, and I feel a lightness. When I rise to the divine child within, I feel as though there's a chance for that divine quality to emerge.
Remember that one of the focuses of centering prayer is kenosis, the sense of Jesus letting go. And so the letting go of thoughts is practicing that so it becomes part of us. We're not holding, but we're letting go. And so it's whoever said that the monkey mind is He said 1,000 times to let go to God, you know, that doesn't matter. So, but I think that really sort of theologically ground-centered prayer is something that it has a lot of depth to it. And it's really important, that sense of letting go.
I could see that this welcoming prayer too. There's a lot of letting go in that.
Yeah.
I mean, you let go finally. I almost cut this all apart and gave each person a piece, but I couldn't get it spaced out very well. I let go of my desire for survival and security.
Mhm.
That's pretty good.
You know, I did have a bit of a reaction because I don't think we ever let go of some of those things, or nor should we completely.
Well, read some of his stuff about it. He basically talks about those being, he writes about those being the essential things we seek as humans, that none of us get that fully met in our childhood, for sure. But then the sort of adult happiness project is thinking, if I can get that, then I'll be happy.
Right.
So I think it's more not that you don't need any of that, but letting go of thinking, I am gonna find that or achieve that, and then I'm gonna have everything I need. I think that's
So
more.
the wording could be a little bit different because
It's interesting, it's his stuff, and it's interesting. I mean, he makes connections of those three. What are the three again? It's survival and security, esteem and affection.
The one before that was I let go of my desire for affection, esteem, approval, and pleasure.
And then the first one was,
Okay. I let go of my desire for power and control.
because he makes a connection between those three and the three temptations in the wilderness. In some of his writing. So anyway, I mean, it's obviously there's lots of ways to.
I understand what you're saying, Debbie Ellen.
Yeah, I do understand what you're saying, but I also think it's interesting just to kind of to pursue his thoughts on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, Margie?
Yeah, so while I was being monkey-minded, I printed out something called Clarifications Regarding Centering Prayer that Thomas Keating wrote to Cardinal Ratzinger, because anyway, but there's something very interesting back here that says that the goal of contemplative prayer is not so much the emptiness of the thoughts or conversation as it is the emptiness of self. And then down here, he talks about the language of mystics must not be taken literally when they speak of emptiness or the void. Jesus practiced emptiness in becoming a human being. That's the kenosis that Tony referred to. Emptying himself of his prerogatives and the natural consequences of his divine dignity. And then he says, the void does not mean void in the sense of nothing at all, but void in the sense of attachment to one's activities. So in those prayers, I think what they're saying is not that security and safety aren't, it's our attachment to those. And so what we're letting go of is attachments. Does that help?
Yeah, it would be helpful to just nuance the wording a little too.
Yeah.
God is with you, but you still have to look both ways before you step out. on the street.
Exactly.
You know, with kenosis, I don't think any human being is capable of kenosis.
A human being is
Jesus.
capable fully of doing that?
Right. That Jesus was the model for that in a way that we approach and you know, seek to be like that, but we will not achieve that in the sense of completely emptying ourselves of ourselves.
I think it's the action. It's not focusing on whether it's totally complete, but the action of letting go. I think that's the main point.
Yeah, and within a time frame. I mean, it's not meaning we let go of this forever. I don't think we're, you know,
Right.
our whole lives. I think it's in this time, we can do this, achieve this, or have this, or give this and receive this, but it's not like, I guarantee it, it's gonna like just like come an hour from now, or when you're in the line at Wegmans, or, you know, I mean, it's something
As a
of a
child,
tool, right? You seek it, and you find that in that time of seeking, you can.
I understand that. As a child, I heard this message that we are to be empty vessels.
Yeah.
And it terrified me because all I could imagine was that I have to be annihilated. I have to disappear. I can't, you know, I need to not have any self at all. And that was unlearning that, letting go of that was
Right.
what needed to happen.
So nothingness, I mean, that's a phrase
Exactly.
used a lot, and I just found that totally, contrary to, I was seeking fullness of some sort, not
Well,
total emptiness. And I mean, that's a big difference in, I mean, that's why I think Christianity can give you a moment or times of fullness.
well,
It's not from you, but
Yeah.
it's a divine fullness. And so to me, to seek emptiness was almost like a contradiction of that process.
So part of what I think you're naming, which is important to name, that in the Christian church tradition, I think partly misunderstanding the mystical aspect of a lot of what's being expressed in the New Testament and in the tradition. And also that there's a sense in which I think a child or a young person, it's almost like you have to figure out who you are before you can give yourself away, right? So that some of this is second half of life work. It's not stuff, you know, that a teenager's
Yeah.
got to do some figuring out, well, who am I? And it has gotten distorted sometime in ways, I think particularly perhaps in some ways, maybe even more for females. Or, but anyway, in the tradition, you know, that you're supposed to be always surrendering and always, you know, submissive and, you know, not asserting your own will. Well, it's tricky, it's tricky
Yeah.
territory. But it doesn't mean it's not true. It means it has to be nuanced and it has to be,
yeah.
but I hear what you're saying. That can be a
I
very,
understand what went awry.
no, but it's good for you to name it. It's
Yeah,
good for you to
there
name it.
is that way in which.
And part of it is where you know, if as a child or a young person, you're in a context where you're being affirmed and valued and loved for your uniqueness and for who you really are, then there's a place to start living into, but I'm also encouraged to give of myself, right? But if you're in a setting where you're being told who you really are is not okay, and you've got to fit this mold, then there's that work of having to say, well, you know, no, I have to be me. That has to go on before you can get to that other. And hopefully in experiencing the divine, we actually, at whatever, you know, experience that love. You know, but it can take a while if those are the messages we've been getting. So, yeah, it's tricky.
Raise the whole issue of the person who's traumatized.
Right.
That can be so hard to overcome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sorry,
I just want to name that next week's session with Laura Peters taking the lead will be at 1, not at 12:30. And it will be in the reminders that are sent out. She couldn't commit to be here by 12:30, so we just decided that we would work with that because we'd like to let her, you know, get to experience her leadership. And it will also need to be in the sanctuary because there is a blood drive happening right out here. That was already scheduled before we scheduled this. And we didn't think we'd want to be trying to do silent meditation with the blood drive in the next room. And I think the sanctuary will work better than the chapel for the Zoom part of things. So we'll just be in there. Okay.
So let's say goodbye to Marge.
Bye, Marge.
Bye,
Bye, Marge. We already lost Margie. We're glad you can join us from Ohio. We'll work on the microphone stuff. Next week, we can actually have the microphone. I'll try to figure out how to do that.
Thank you so much, Debbie, for doing this. I don't think we would have been anywhere without you.
Well,
Thank you, Barb.
I'm,
Thank you.
Oh,
Barb.
you're welcome. Yeah. And that-
we're getting there. I'm learning a little.
Maybe last week, we couldn't get on Thursday meditation
all right?
because the,
No, I know what happened.
okay,
Which we've changed this week.